Hey everybody, Mr. Yago here. I'm going to go through a little pre-lab on our differences between ionic and covalent compounds. This is kind of your first, I'd say, fairly decent chemistry lab. And our objectives today is going to be classifying the compounds as either primary ionic or covalent, observing and recording some of the properties of them, and then recognizing patterns between them. So we have learned a lot about bonding so far, but now we're going to actually deal with some of these bonded elements, these compounds, and see how they react to certain tests. So material-wise, you're going to have some toothpicks for stirring, a conductivity tester, which if we don't have enough, your teacher might go around and help you with that. A scupula, which is going to be a metal kind of spoon-like device. Sodium chloride, which its symbol NaCl. Phenyl salicylate, which is C13H10O3. Calcium chloride, Ca2Cl. Actually, let me correct that for a second. That's CaCl2. Good thing I caught that. And we are also going to be dealing with sucrose, which is C12H22O11. And we are going to be then mixing that with methanol, which is in the alcohol family, CH3OH in distilled water. When you get to your lab tomorrow, first thing you're going to do is writing what the purpose of this experiment is. And this is something that we often do before our experiment is being completed. And you actually would need to go through these procedures and read through them before you would complete this. And that's what you're going to be doing in this video. If we take a look at our procedure, you are going to need something called a spot plate. This spot plate is going to have a bunch of wells, and we really want to make sure that this is clean. If it is dirty, immediately go wash it with soap and water and definitely dry it off thoroughly. One of the biggest issues that we can have in chemistry is contamination. You are only as good as whoever cleaned before you. So obviously our goal is to keep them clean. So please clean yours, but if it's dirty, clean it up. What I want you to do is lay the spot plate on a piece of paper. So we have lots of brown paper towel that will work perfectly. You will notice that we are going to use 4 columns, and I have labeled those columns below as 1, 2, 3, 4. And in those columns, we are going to also use specific elements and compounds. So we have our NaCl, which is our salt, our calcium chloride, our phenyl salicylate, and our sucrose, which is sugar. Those are all going to be put into our columns. And in the rows, we are going to mix them with distilled water, and this row with methanol. So label a sheet of paper underneath so you do not forget. You can also use this as a reference to help you remember. Now, using that scupula, which is that metal piece, you are going to place a few crystals of sample of sodium chloride into the first column. So what that means is you are putting them into here, and this well, and this well. Make sure that scupula is cleaned off, and then you are going to grab calcium chloride for the second, phenyl salicylate for the third, and sucrose for the fourth. Now, across the rows here, if you look at step 4, to the first row, add several drops of distilled water to each well. We have these in small little squirt bottles, so be very careful you don't squirt too much water into that well and wash it off, but that'll be going across in all these rows. And then methanol will be dripped into these 4 rows right here, so your columns, so your second row. Be sure, and I'm highlighting it here, be sure to not contaminate each reaction and do not stir each solution with the same toothpick. That's going to cause contamination. Now, you're in a group. While you are doing this and adding these substances, I would take your time. You want to record if the substance appears to dissolve a little, or not dissolve at all. So when you're going through, you can place all your solid in here, but when you put this distilled water in the first one, make some observations. When you put distilled water in the second one, make some observations, and so on and so forth. So you have plenty of people in a group to be observing those things, plenty of people to make sure that you are not using the same toothpick. Row 2, we're using methanol, which is an alcohol. So if that is exposed to air, it will evaporate quickly. So please don't leave those containers open. Again, you are going to pour it into each row, and that is the second row right here. Make sure to observe at each section. If you see any dissolving, dissolve a little, or it doesn't dissolve at all. So full dissolve would be you can't see it anymore. A little dissolve is there's some residue left, and then does not dissolve is nothing really dissolved at all. Once your data is complete, wash your spot plate with soap and water to remove all chemicals. These can go down the drain. Wipe your lab table with a wet paper towel and definitely dry off. If we don't get around, which we might not. Every year we have some issues with the conductivity testers. We might perform the conductivity test up front. So when you get to this last column of data, most likely we will do that up front for you. We're giving you some data. Your description should be in here. Your solubility should be in here. A description would be something like, what does it look like? What is its color? What is its texture? Things of that nature. Its physical properties would be great to be putting in there. If it's a solid, liquid, or gas would be fine too. From there, we're going to go on to your conclusion questions, which will wrap up your understanding of this lab and truly give you an opportunity to see what some of these Lewis dot structures you've been drawing look like and how they react, how those metals interact, how those non-metals interact, and so on and so forth. All those questions will then follow that you can work on when you're done. So this video is to basically help you prepare for the lab tomorrow. Give you a little bit of background so there are less questions. If you do have questions, though, feel free to ask. Big things tomorrow in this lab, since it's our first lab. Safety goggles have to be on. Proper lab safety procedures also have to be followed. Have a great day. Thanks.